How is Shadowlands compared to BFA, clearly? Is it worth coming back to? Well, you know, we always had a more, let's say, positive outlook on the game, maybe more so than the community usually perceives it to be. Probably because BFA wasn't all that bad, but it did have its issues, and the devs are learning from all of that and implementing it into Shadowlands, and not only just from BFA, but from Legion as well. And we've had alpha for about 2-3 months now. I think we got in on the second week of alpha, so it was pretty early, and we had hands-on access to pretty much every change that they made since the alpha was released. And we also knew what kind of feedback people were putting out, so it was incredible to see people complaining about the new change to Fire Mage Mastery and how they actually listened and changed it. Same thing to Balance Druid. God damn it, can you imagine that Balance Druid in BFA is a full proc fiesta and everything is pretty much random? And now it isn't. In Shadowlands, you actually have control over your rotation, and this is a clear example on how they're designing the game. And this is a big thing that I think will make the game a lot better, and that is to eliminate as much of the RNG as possible. Don't get me wrong, a little bit of RNG is nice to add some wild element to your gameplay. A little bit of unpredictability is always okay, but having your entire rotation, your entire damage based on random procs, and not only that, 10 to 20 random procs. If you look at your character sheet when you're in a boss fight or in an arena or whatever you do, you will notice that you have a lot of procs. Essences, gear, trinkets, enchants, weapons, you name it. It's a lot. So it's nice that we're taking a step away from that. We're toning it down. We are unpruning classes, but we're not cluttering the game with millions and millions and millions of dice rolled to see what your character will be doing in the next minute. It's incredible. And you can see that mindset going further outside class design as well, and into the outer world, and more so into crafting. We've lost crafting for quite a few years. I mean, sure, you could craft your items, and people were crafting items in BFA, especially top-end players, top-end raiders that were pushing specific content, but have you ever crafted a bracers about 12 to 15 times and still not get those damn stats? Well, not anymore, dear viewer, because in Shadowlands you can actually choose your secondary stats. You heard me. Bye-bye RNG. Not to mention that the weekly chest will have a choice option into what item you would be getting out of your chest. It's not implemented yet, but I can only imagine it's going to be way better than what we have now, because I am tired of getting that one shitty trinket week after week after week after week after week. And this goes beyond that as well. The new systems in Shadowlands have a reduced amount of RNG-ness to them. The probably most RNG that I can think of right now is Convoke the Spirits for Druids. That is the epitome of RNG. What that does is, you know, you have 4 seconds of channeling 16 random druid abilities. There is a slight favor towards the abilities of your spec, of your choice, but they're still random. And even with that went through at least 2 iterations that I know of to more so make it be a little bit more in your control, where now if you're not in combat you don't cast offensive spells, but you cast defensive heals and stuff like that. If you're in melee, you start to cast spells like Thrash that are melee oriented and things like that. So there are a couple of elements inputted into the system, even though it's RNG, that you have control over. And this is again one of the best selling points for the expansion for me, and I hope for you too, in that no more RNG. You have control of your character, you have control of your journey in an MMO to achieve the goal, to achieve whatever you wish to achieve in the game, without wondering like, am I gonna get it this week or next week or 2 months from now? None of that stuff. None of that stuff. I am incredibly happy about this, and if you are, and if you think this is a good thing, tell us in the comments. We really want to know, because we've heard different opinions about RNG in the past, and it definitely has, you know, an appealing factor as to, oh, I'm just getting that one proc, oh my god, it feels amazing. Okay, those moments are pretty cool, but compared to the other side of the coin, it doesn't compensate it. What do you think?
There's a lot of questions that are probably on your mind as well. And this is quite evolving at this point since the beta is out, and we still have a lot of interviews to go through. I know sometime when this video is out, the Preach interview with Ian Hazzikostas will already be published, but nevertheless, is Shadowlands worth coming back to? Or how is Shadowlands so far? Well, there's actually two questions. So in terms of what are you going to be able to do when you reach level 60 as compared to BFA? Because, okay, I know Flame compared it a lot to BFA, and we kind of need to do that because the majority of us, as much as we found stuff that was pretty good in BFA and we enjoyed the game still in some capacity, there was definitely a lot of bullshit. All right, so we have to compare it to BFA. Now remember, when we hit 120 in BFA, our classes felt super shallow, super weak, and the stuff that you wanted to do or needed to do when you hit 120 for the first time was kind of not there necessarily. I mean, sure, you had the Mythic Plus, you had I'm not sure even the raid was out by that point. Pretty sure it wasn't. There was the class campaign, the island expeditions. Oh, and does anybody remember Warfronts? Man, that went out so quickly. It's a shame. I think those is Warfronts and Island Expeditions had potential. Okay, now in comparison to Shadowlands, right off the bat, we're gonna go into the Covenants. While questing, we'll meet all of the Covenants, and I can tell you now, all the Covenants have pretty interesting stories. Some of them more interesting than others, but nevertheless, you'll not get bored going through all of those. And once you reach max level, you'll have to decide. This is one of the main problems, and everybody in the community has talked about this because you're gonna feel locked into that. And already, at least in PvP, you saw a lot of the famous figures playing arenas on beta, and everybody's choosing the Venter one because of the teleport, the shadow door thingy. That's one problem, all right? You're gonna be locked into that Covenant. I understand the fantasy behind it, the RPG element around it. Ian talked about it in all of its capacity. It's fine. And then you have the conduits, right? The conduits and the soulbinds, which should be more spec specific and should be more tuning to your spec and make you customize your spec the way you want it. The main problem with that is the fact that it will be gem-like once you put a conduit in and you want to replace it for a different type of content, you will forever lose that stuff. And Ian made a point that they don't want you to have a lot of these soulbinds into your bag to swap up around. And that's a really good point, because right now, and the majority of BFA, you had in your bag like, I don't know, 4 types of chests and shoulders and headpieces for different builds and Azerite traits, depending on what kind of content you do, right? Raiding required something, Mythic Plus required something else, and PvP, probably a mix of those two. There's a lot of positives, don't get me wrong. Shadowlands will be a much better expansion, and it looks so far already. Like, the journey through the alpha and right now in the beta, it 100% shows that it will be much better than BFA. First of all, they fixed a lot of the things. Flame touched upon those as well. One major thing, at least for PvPers, is the PvP vendor and the PvP currency, plus the fact that you can target your gear. You're not forced anymore in PvP and PvE as well. You'll have a range of options to choose from. Also, there's the crafting of the legendaries, which is also targetable, no more RNG. It's really good. There's the renown system, which initially I thought it's gonna be the next AP, like AP 3.0 or something, but it's actually really good. It's made logical and it doesn't lock you into an open, like unlimited endless grind or something. So that's also a positive. Now, that being said, right now, the biggest factor to determine if Shadowlands is worth coming back to, if it's better, or how is it looking so far, is in regards to the classes, and more specifically to the GCD. We talked about this in a lot of on cooldown episodes. A lot of other content creators addressed this. There was talks about this within interviews with devs. And sure enough, the wide answer was always provide specific feedback. Now, if you look on our channel, or if you're familiar with our work in any capacity, you'll see that we focus a lot on classes and specs, right? We do a lot of research for every spec. We get a lot of feedback and collaborate with most of the biggest theory crafters and most, let's say, knowledgeable figures in the community of that specific spec. So if we don't know what we're talking about, I'm pretty sure the people we work with really know what they're talking about. And this specific feedback has been made by these community figures, theory crafters and whatnot, and us as well within our Shadowlands Alpha class overview videos. There's this thing where you have this GCD change implemented in BFA, and now it's gonna be an even bigger shit show in Shadowlands just because you're gonna have more abilities on the GCD due to the unpruning. This is a major issue, and if you remember a while back we talked about the problems that BFA had, and I'm going back to when you first ding max level. If your class, the first thing you ever interact with in the game, this is your most personal connection, your biggest investment is in your class, your main character. I'm not talking alts. Your main character, if that doesn't feel good and it doesn't work properly, it doesn't give you this sense of, oh, this is juicy, I'm finally max level, I can do stuff, it matters, it has an impact. If that isn't there, everything around it will be like meh. And that's what happened in BFA, because we lost the artifact traits. It took a long time for your class to feel okay, and I'm not even going through all the problems with Shadow Priests or Feral Druids and a bunch of other specs as well. This GCD bullshit has to stop. I don't think it's technically that challenging for them to do so, as the game worked pretty well with that up until BFA, and I didn't see or remember any complaints in regards to that. And now having more abilities from the unpruning and from the covenants, and who knows, maybe some from the legendaries, the GCD is gonna be just a bigger problem. Specific feedback or really isolated issues with the GCD, we have provided that. The forums are full of it. The most important figures within the specs community have provided that. The changes were minor and it really doesn't feel good for the majority of the classes. So how is Shadowlands looking so far? It's looking way better than BFA, that's for sure. It's definitely worthwhile. Now we're just talking about, man, some stuff they are stubborn about just need to be reverted. I'm talking about the GCD change. Further tuning regarding the soulbinds and conduits and how abilities will work, that will happen later on. But if there's one thing that could 100% make this expansion one of the best, okay, because it is shaping up to be one of the best in terms of the whole approach in story and universe and vibe. This is it. Just drop the goddamn GCD change. There's no point. But anyway, I think that's our 2 and 3 cents on the matters. We're more interested on what do you think. So, hey, feel free to throw us any idea you have and thoughts on the comments if you have beta, or if you don't and watch a lot of videos on the topic. Let's start a conversation. So there is a lot to talk about, and when deciding if you want to go back to Shadowlands or how is Shadowlands so far, I guess the short answer would be it's pretty good, much better than BFA,
it's
for
very
sure.
promising, I would say.
Yes, but there's still a lot of things that they need to. Why are they so stubborn?
Yeah, they keep on their stubborn faces for a couple of things, like the changing on the covenants. Like, we get that they want to feel the change more impactful, to give value to the covenants.
We get
but
that.
Then again, the abilities are just way too strong and way too specific each. Like, you have the Hunter Flayed Shot from Revendreth, where that's just single targets. No question about it, it's just single target.
Yeah.
So if you want to do anything other than raid, it will pretty much underperform.
Yeah, same thing happens with the Divine Toll for Paladins, right? That's like AoE 100%. If you want to go raiding, that wouldn't be your pick. And if you really like the Bastion theme, if you're a Paladin, because, you know, it's wings, it kind of, like, Uther is there as well. It's kind of...
There's indeed too many factors to go into when we go into Shadowlands and to the Covenant, which actually they put into the beta right now. You can actually go through the choose your Covenant scenario, and there's each covenant has about 3 to 4 reasons to either pick it or not pick it. They can be cosmetics, it can be the overall utility from the covenant, like the Door of Shadows. It can be the class ability. It can be the story. It can be the zone. It can be the thing.
All zones are super nice.
Vampire parties and stuff like that. So there's way too many things, and if you don't like all of them, you'll always feel like, but I kind of like what that other covenant was doing with this one thing.
It's a lot to get locked into, and again, we don't mind the RPG element of it. I think that's something that was needed back placed into World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
The thing is, that element is not 100% RPG-ish because it reverberates in all of the things you do and impact you in all of the content you want to do. And as an MMO that's based inside of a big-ass world, you're probably gonna be inclined to try doing dungeons, doing raids, doing the storylines, doing the class campaigns, the Covenant campaigns, maybe some PvP. That would be a problem. This RPG element is not only RPG, it's really technical and moving forward in all of the dimensions of the game.
Yeah, but I think, I wanted to touch on one other thing. If they can make Covenant ability something that you're not locked in getting and just make, I can see us being locked within one Covenant if we just want the cosmetics. The cosmetics, the overall feel, the atmosphere. I'm fine with that. Let me make it, let it be hard for me to choose that. But when it comes to player power, don't lock that. Don't lock player power behind, these kind of walls.
It's gonna be an interesting ride still, and of course, all of your opinions should be down in the comments, and if not in our comments, go ahead and speak your mind on the forums, because they are open, right? They're reading a lot of that stuff, and this is only our piece of mind. Of course, we could be wrong on this. It's just this is coming from two guys who play
subjective.
Yeah, a lot of specs, and a lot of gameplay from all of the parts of World of Warcraft, and this is something we are afraid of. But maybe you're different, so please let us know in the comments. And also, let's
thank our patrons.
Yes.
You guys are supporting all of our content, all of our videos, and all of the upgrades that go into our channel, like these little things.
So cute.
So rest assured, of course, it's not required to be a Patreon, but every little bit of effort goes into a good place. And if you're interested in supporting us a little bit more, check the link down below. You'll find our Patreon along with other really helpful links that you might find useful,
like our Discord.
And maybe there's something for you. And speaking of Twitch,
Twitch.tv/MarcelianOnline, we give a big shout out to all of our Twitch subscribers and our followers and the folks that come around and play with us, play with Flame, keys and stuff. You can catch us like almost every day doing the dungeons, Mythic Plus, Shadowlands stuff. On Wednesdays we do the raid with duo cam, so there's a whole lot of stuff there for you as well. And with that,
we bid you
farewell.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
We actually didn't have to practice that one. That's pretty cool.
Getting professionals at this.